We are now at הירקון Cemetery, בית קברות הירקון, that it's actually outside Tel Aviv because the Jews supposed to be buried outside the city, not inside the city. And that's the cemetery of Tel Aviv and the cities around it. There are so many traditions about it. Some started their journey from the house of the dad and they're stopping next to the synagogue that he used. Some starting the journey from the hospital that the body was taken from, or some starting the tour, and actually I must say a lot of them started the tour from the journey from here. Soon I will show you where the Levaya started, the journey actually started, the journey that we actually going with him, saying goodbye to him. But there's so many ways to bury the Jews today because there's not a lot of space, and we do have 9 million people now in Tel Aviv, in Israel. Then, for example, one next to the other. To be buried in Israel, it's supposed to be for free, but if the second one wants to have a place next to his wife or husband, then second couple, then in that case he will buy a place for himself. For example, here, see that Naomi Zichronah Levracha already died, but her husband will be buried there. See, there's nothing on it. And here, for example, 2 people wanted to be buried together, but there's no more space. Then they are buried one above the other. Then let's say that the first man who died will be in the lower part, because that is on the tombstone. We have been buried beneath the ground, and the one who died later on will be buried above him, like here and like there. If you're a Christian, then you must know that the Jews have been buried exactly like Jesus was buried before, 2,000 years ago. Jesus was a Jew, and as a Jew, first you will try to bury the dead before sunset, because at sunset a new day begins, and then they will purify your body, and they will put a shroud around you. They will cover you with it. You're gonna be buried with it. No shoes, no makeup, no haircut. Nothing, naked, without a casket, without a coffin, straight into the ground. Lately, you can see they're building now a new structure. Because there was no space, people have been buried in those houses. Well, you can call it the last parking lot ever. Then you can see that it's a beautiful building, I must say. And let's go together to see one of them. Then please wait with me. Wait, don't go, don't go. On the way to there, let's talk about what you can see on the tombstone, what they are writing. First of all, here you can see the above sentences from the Bible, or from the Talmud and the Mishnah. And here is buried my wife, my mother, and our grandmother, and the name of her daughter of, and she was born in that year. And here you can see a memory for a memory of her parents, Yaakov, David, and Chagi Gittel, and the brother that been killed in the Holocaust and they never been buried. We are adding stones into the tombstones. We are not sure why it is, but let's start with that if it was a rich man, like Joseph over Arimathea that gave Jesus his own tomb, then he was buried in a cave, something like that. It's called the Sanhedrin tombs. But if not, they used to dig a hole in the ground and they used to bury it. To mark it, they used to mark it with stones. And some believe that we are actually adding another stone, another block for the future temple in Jerusalem. Let me show you one more thing. I will take you there, then stay with me. That flag of Israel brought me to here because usually there's a story that connected to soldiers, but usually soldiers are being buried in a separated cemetery next to it. Here it's a woman that been murdered in a terror attack in the city of Emmanuel. Then there's another flag there. Let me see what it is about. Then way with me. Another flag took me to the tomb of that man. That was a religious man, and he was killed in a terror attack, but they didn't mention where. Then you can study a lot of what of the man through the tombstones. They now promise not to stop on the way. Let me tell you that we are going to see a functioning place like that. It will remind you of a Catholic cemetery or other Christian cemetery. But on the way to the tomb, they will pray from the Bible, from the Mishnah. The idea is remember where you came from, where you're heading, and who's going to judge you at the end of the day. Pictures on the tombstone are not so famous in Israel. It's not according to the second command. You should have no figures. But a lot of the people who came from Russian, Georgia, and countries use it in Israel. As you can see, you can do that. This is where the funeral began, the journey will begin. Here on that stage that will actually pray, people will say things about the man, they will say forgiveness as well. I can see that they're waiting for a funeral to be. I'm going to be there in about half an hour in a different funeral, but we are heading to that beautiful structure to show you how we have buried people those days. This is the ground floor, which is actually like the regular cemetery that you saw before, but you can see that above it there's a building. Then let's climb up. Today there are elevators that can take you to the upper floor, but we will climb up by foot. There are more than 60,000 dead. More than 60,000 people have been buried here in that cemetery. See the tramp. The idea is to carry the dead until the burial site, but you can use the elevator or the stairs instead of it. Let's do it traditionally. That cemetery is young. It's only from 1991. Look what's happening here. My best friend is buried there. Yael, I will never miss you. Never forget you. I'll miss you all the time. I went to another building to show you a different way of burying, in niches. In a way, a few years ago when people started to be buried there, the families didn't like it. It's not like that. It's not straight in the ground, but I must tell you that in the time of Second Temple House, King Herod, people used to bury rich men. Used to be buried in caves, niches, Sanhedrin tombs. Then it's not bad, if you ask me, but it's still new for the Jews. Here you can see that it's part of a structure, and the same words, a little bit less. You can find them. Everyone can do whatever you want, and they can decorate it in its own way. Then another way to be buried. You can see that it's not on here; it's there as well. Let's climb to the roof and to show you how big is that cemetery, and then we will say goodbye, but not for a long time. What you can see here is only a small part of it. On the way out, the Jews will purify the hands 3 times, and they won't use a towel, and that's the way to say goodbye. Some of them will have a kind of a cut. They will in their shirt to show them, to show us that they are mourning now for 7 days. We'll rip off that shirt, and we are not supposed to go out from the same place. This is 2020, January, very close to Tel Aviv, Ayakon Cemetery, Israel.